Hello and welcome to another episode of A Focus on Careers, the video and podcast session that introduces you to real live experiences out there in various careers. Today, we're very fortunate to have Anita Huang, who is an audiologist, a very interesting field, and we're going to hear about her experience, how she got there, what she does, what her daily routine is from a work perspective, and a little bit of background. So, Anita, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, George, for having me.
Thank you. So, tell us a little bit about your background. First of all, how you got into audiology. Was it through medicine or was it through technology? I know that it's become a very high tech industry. So lead us into that.
So I was studying special education in university. So originally I was trying to become a teacher. And then, so one of the class or one of the subject that we took was called Introduction to Audiology. And that sort of broadened my views of what I can do for people. And I decided audiology was a little bit more interesting than teaching. So after I got my bachelor degree, I decided to, study a bit more about audiology. Hence, I came to Australia and then did a Master of Clinical Audiology course, which led me to where I am at the moment.
Okay, so you started your career offshore.
Yes, so I had a bachelor degree in Taiwan.
Oh, okay.
And then I decided to do audiology. But at the moment, the most, the best schools of audiology at the moment is in Australia and in the United States, obviously, right, because Australia being the first country developing cochlear implant, the United States, is the country that actually invented audiology. So these two countries have a lot of focus on the field and then a lot of research going on. And hence, I decided to come to Australia and do the course here.
Wow, that's interesting, right? To move away from home. It's always a struggle moving away from home, a challenge and a leap of faith. But to get the best training in the field that you wanted to be in, that's a testament to you and to your commitment to it.
Thank you.
What university in Sydney or in Australia was?
I went to University of Melbourne, so Melbourne University. Yeah, okay. So I started everything in Melbourne, and after that I got a job in Tasmania. So I spent 3.5 years in Tasmania before I decided that's enough of countryside for me. I decided to go back or come back to being a city girl. And there was the job opportunity came up in Sydney, and they said, "Oh, would you like to get a job in Sydney?" I said, "Absolutely, anything that could get me out of Tasmania." Although I do love Tasmania, I love Tasmania.
Yeah. The Apple Isle.
Yes, you got the nicest people there, the best view, but it's just too quiet for someone in their 20s. So I said, well, I'll have a change of life, and here I am in Sydney after 10 years.
Wonderful. So education to audiology, and now you're an audiologist. So just can you explain a little bit about audiology itself? I mean, what are the attributes that you needed? Is there a lot of maths required for it? Is a lot of biology, those sorts of things that are prerequisites or good to have if you were looking at a career in audiology?
School of Audiology is always looking for people that have a background in allied health, nursing, linguistics, perhaps, education sometimes are what they favored when they're selecting students. We do a bit of acoustics, math, a little bit, not too much, anatomy as well, but I think it's just a little bit of everything in the science part. So you do need to be interested in biology, that's for
Right.
sure. You are allowed to use a calculator when we're doing logarithm, so it's not really that bad. It is a competitive course because there's only 1 or 2 universities in each state offering the course.
Right.
So a good heads up is to get really good scores and your bachelor degree.
Right.
That would sort of secure you a spot in the course. Yes.
And when talking about that, when you were doing the course, was it a balance, as far as gender is concerned? Is it, how did you find that?
I think audiology in general is still more a female field. So you have a lot of ladies than gentlemen in the class. You do see more and more gentlemen taking part or participate in this field, but majority of us are females, but because it does require a lot of listening. And I guess in a way, the ladies are more interested in listening to people, communication. They may be better at
it. Fair enough. So it's quite interesting because I have an elderly father, and I've taken him several times to his audiology appointments, and seen everything around. I mean, the developments come at such a rapid rate, and the technology there. So you really need to keep up with the technology, continue to understand what the developments are. Yeah,
indeed. Like audiologists can work in different fields. So you could work in hospitals, which means you are mainly performing hearing tests, either on adults or infants or kids, depends on which hospital you're working for.
right.
You can also be doing balance tests, which means you're testing people's balance, make sure that, for example, people have tumor pre-operation, post-operation. Is it affecting their balance? Is there something else happening in the inner organs that's causing them, walking wobbly, for example?
Right.
So that field,
so vertigo and things like
exactly.
that. Right.
So for those audiologists, technology is probably not the priority for them. There are also audiologists working in cochlear implant and hearing aid clinic like myself. Then you do need to spend a lot more time looking into technology. 10 years ago, hearing aids sort of get updated every 2 to 3 years. So once you've learned how these hearing aids work across the major manufacturers, you'll be okay to sit back and relax for about 2 years before you have to, take another course on learning new stuff again. But nowadays, I think it's just the same as all the computer technology. You have everything come out so quickly, new things being invented all the time, meaning just when you thought you've learned everything, you'll have something else to learn again. So you do have to have an open mind when it comes to understanding technology or happy to understand the terms and how machine works. A lot of people think audiologist as someone that does ally health. In fact, we're also a little bit like a technician. So you have to be interested in machines as well. Otherwise, it will be very hard for you to keep up with all the development.
Right. So Anita, you mentioned that you work on hearing aids and you also work on cochlear implants. And you mentioned earlier that the cochlear implant was indeed invented here in Australia. So without getting too technical, I think, but it's just important to know, and probably just out of interest for myself, really. What are the differences between, a hearing aid and a cochlear implant exactly?
So hearing aid are for people with mild to sort of severe hearing loss, which means we're not really touching your ears at all. We're adding an extra amplification, meaning the hearing aid, and then we send the sound to your own hearing organ. From there, your own hearing aid organ takes over, send the sound to the brain to be decoded. Okay. When it comes to cochlear implant, we're talking about people's hearing organ being very fragile or no longer good enough to do the job. So these people actually have to have an operation to put electrodes into the ears to replace the functions of the hearing cells. And then we send the amplification through the electrodes into the ear, directly stimulating the nerves. So it's a totally different way of amplification for people that have very severe hearing loss.
And do you, when you get involved in that, involved in the implementing the cochlear implant, or is that done in surgery, or is it, how is that done?
A cochlear implant is being implanted by an ear specialist.
Right.
So they will do the operation part. Audiologist is looking after the mapping, which means we turn the machine on and then set the volume at the right level. Also the rehabilitation from there. So we still require the surgeons to put the machine in for us first, and then we'll take over.
Okay, interesting. So your role will, has a lot of interaction with people, obviously, and people that are struggling with one of the most important senses we have, the hearing. How do you find, how do you find it from day to day? Is it taxing on you? And clearly you need empathy. As you said earlier, no pun intended, but you need to be listening. You need to understand, because there's a fine line there in getting it right. And again, I know this from experience with my father. There's you go through a lot of iterations, and it requires a lot of patience. So how do you deal with that? How do you find that?
I think you have to be the particular type of person to be an audiologist. You do have to have immense of patience, because people come in, they will tell you everything they worry about, a little bit like doctors. They never come and see you and tell you everything's great. So when they come to see you, that means there's a problem. So you're always dealing with negativities, or 99.9% of the time you're dealing with negativities. So you do have to prepare yourself. Okay, my day is probably going to fill up with negativities, but how can I turn that negativity into an optimistic outcome or a satisfying outcome? Is quite important. You also have to have very good critical thinking and problem solving skills, because apparently we can't hear what people wearing hearing aids are hearing. So when they come in and they tell you, I don't like this, or I'm hearing a certain sound that I don't like, you can't actually hear it, because it's actually
that's a good point.
ears.
That's a very good point. Never thought of that. Yeah, wow.
So sometimes you're working a bit like a detective. You have to know what questions to ask to get the right answer before you could actually deal with their problems. People might be telling you one thing, but they're actually hearing something totally different. It's not because they're trying to, make your job hard. It's just because they don't know how to describe it. So very often we'll be in a clinic and the clients or the patients will say, I don't know how to describe this. And so you'll have to ask them maybe 5 questions, 10 questions before you can work out, okay, I guess you're describing this particular phenomenon, and then let's try to deal with it. So
that's very interesting, because do you sort of build up a mental database of these things? So when someone says they're sort of hearing, describe something, and you've known it somewhere else as being, and then you fine tune. Is that how you work with?
Yeah, so a lot of the times it comes with experience. So if you are a newly graduate and people are trying to describe what they're hearing and what they don't like, you don't really know what to do. You don't know how to adjust the machine to a point where it actually help the person that's wearing it or make it satisfying. When it comes to doing these sort of things, because you see 10 people, 15 people every day, you gradually learn how people would usually describe things, and then you gradually learn how to ask the right question to get you the answer that is going to be helpful for yourself. And so all comes with experience, I think. Yeah.
So experience, and then detective work, and then process of elimination, deductive reasoning, and off you go, and you get through it that way. How about with the challenges of non-English speakers, for example? I mean, obviously, hearing issues are not, restricted to one group. So you've got young children, you've got older people, you've got people with other issues, and you've got people who do not speak English. And I know I'm going to touch on a little bit later that you are a master of languages, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. So
usually if people speak a second language, or English is their second language, we'll always encourage they take their family along to make sure that we actually get the message across. There's certain clinics who use interpretation services as well, so they will ring the number and try to get the message across. But it is very important to have someone that's familiar with the language of the users that's wearing the hearing aid to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And because different language have different features, so when you're adjusting the hearing aids, sometimes you do need to make sure the amplification fulfill the needs of understanding one particular language than the other.
That's interesting.
So for those people, we always said, please bring a family member along so we can get things right. Or we will try to do our best and we'll ring the family later and say, this is what we've done today. Can you double check? And we might have another appointment in 2 weeks' time and, fine tune things if we've stuffed it up.
Right. And how about with young children, babies, infants, young children? I mean, I know in the past when I've taken, my son for an eye checkup when he was younger, and they say better or worse, left, right, which is better. And I sort of wonder to myself, does he really know what's going on here, or is he just going through the process? For hearing, I think that would be more difficult. And how do you deal with that? And do you have many children patients?
I don't fit hearing aids to children. At school, we do learn it, but my clinic is mainly focused on adults. We do tests for kids as well. So as audiologists that deal with kids, you have to be super energetic. You have to be very excited about anything you want to do. What we try to do is present all the assessments as games. So let them think they're there to play a game. And every time they do really well, we'll give them a really, really, a big response. Say, well, that's really good. You've done really well. So you have to make them feel that they've achieved something spectacular through the process to be able to get the result you want. And sometimes you may not be able to get the result you want. You might have to have 2 or 3 appointments to be able to have the full picture of what's going on. It is a very, very, very tiring job for pediatric audiologists. So I have the greatest respect to people that choose to deal with kids all the time. So there are clinics that what we call pediatric specialists. So what their job is looking after children's need, and especially dealing with the schools as well, because they do need to work with teachers to make sure that the amplification is working well in a school environment, not only just with the family.
Right. So you've given us a great insight into your role, into the background, etc. I'd be interested to hear from you. What are the things that you really find challenging in your role? What are those things that make it tough? I mean, clearly you've got a passion for it, but whatever you do, there is an issue somewhere along the line.
Exactly. I think anyone that takes on audiology at the beginning we're thinking we are part of the LA Health, which is correct. We are part of the LA Health. We're there to take our responsibility on people's hearing, look after their hearing needs and try to help them. We also have to recommend hearing aids to people. And when you recommend hearing aids, unfortunately that falls sort of into the retail industry. So you are sort of a little bit of a both. You are the allied health workers. At the same time, you are also part of the retail industry. And a lot of the graduates or a lot of the students weren't aware of the retail part until they actually get into the industry. And that is a very big shock, I think, to all of us, because at school, they're not going to teach you how to tell people they need to buy a hearing aid. That's in the marketing course, not in audiology course. But when you get to the clinic, people will say, well, you need to try to tell people they need to buy hearing aid. And I think that part, even for me up to today, is still a little bit uncomfortable. At times when you tell people they need to spend money, they need to change hearing aids. And I guess we are not the most passionate people when it comes to marketing and sales, hence we're in allied health.
Right.
So a lot of people can feel a bit daunting when it comes to discussing hearing aids. For me, up to today, I'm still trying to learn to do it properly.
Well, it's a two-prong issue, isn't it? I mean, first of all, telling someone they need a hearing aid could come as a bit of a shock to some people. There are lots of stigma, and not so much anymore, but attached to it. But secondly, as you mentioned, I mean, hearing aids are a big investment. You know, you're talking about thousands of dollars if you're making an investment like that. So yeah, I could see how you would struggle with that if that's not been part of your training, and it's not what you effectively, these graduates, as far as they're concerned, that's not what they signed up for, right?
Exactly. They signed up to be an audiologist, help people to, test their hearing and all that, not knowing, okay, I have to discuss a deal of thousands of dollars and get them to sign the contract.
So what is your, I mean, truly, I believe audiology is like all medicine, all the medical industry. When you have such a positive outcome, must be so rewarding when you have someone who is profoundly, hard of hearing, and all of a sudden you do the analysis and you do the fitting, and that person, I mean, that must be a big positive in your day, yeah?
Exactly. I think what we are most looking forward to every day is to see the smiles of the person, smiles of the family. And if we don't see the person very often, we know we've done a good job. So what we're aiming to do is to get the person not to come back and see us until the next regular checkup is due. So for audiologists, we don't want to see them too often, just like the doctors wouldn't want to see their patients all the time either.
Exactly. So interestingly, through lockdown, through COVID and what have you, I mean, we need to touch on that because it's just part of our life now anyway. How is have you continued to see clients in the practice, or has some of it gone online? Are you able to conduct testing and so forth online?
I think part of the technology now has allowed us to do certain things online. The latest term we have in audiology field is tele-audiology. So we start to do quite a few things through Zoom or through the softwares, through iPhone, through iPad, connecting to the hearing aid. Hence, we can do the adjustment while the client's sitting at home. That's probably about 15% of the things that we could do at the moment. But I think that will become a main focus, because obviously it's very convenient, especially for elderlies when they have no one that could transport them from one area to another, meaning coming to the clinic may be very difficult. Able to sit at home and have everything filled and done with is a big benefit. So we do see more and more use of telehealth, which is teleaudiology at the moment. Yeah.
Right. So what do you see as the future of the industry itself? I mean, a very promising industry, one that is not necessarily being replaced by technology, but rather enhanced by technology. Would that be right to say?
Indeed, I don't think the technology can replace audiologists altogether, but it's what do you call it, a great relief that we can have the benefit or the help of the current technology. Allows to a lot more than what we used to be able to do. I mean, 15 years ago, people are adjusting hearing aids with screwdrivers, and now we are adjusting hearing aids through different softwares. I do see telehealth become a major part of our lives or our industry. But I do believe that audiologists will still be a main role when it comes to taking care of people's hearing. Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's that's fair enough. I guess it's hand in hand, as you said. Yeah. With previously with the screwdrivers, and now with software. It's quite a fascinating development. But I think we've seen that across all areas of life, and in particular all areas of medicine. I mean, it's quite. And so, how many? Do you know the graduate rate? I mean, are we producing lots of graduates in this field, or who produces the most? Are they produced in the US, in UK, Australia? What's the sort of split? If you knew, if you don't know, then just.
I think America will still have the greatest graduates, or not greatest number of graduates every year. In Australia, we have about 300 every year. It's a very small industry, so people literally knows everyone else. Especially if you're from a certain school, everyone knows everyone. It is quite a protective industry, I can say, because you have to graduate from that course before you can become an audiologist, and therefore they don't really want a big number of people out, although they're still looking for graduates or looking for new blood in the industry. It is a very small field, I think. Yeah. So
And how long is the course itself, the university course?
So in Australia, it's a master degree, so it's a 2-year course full time. So you do need to be free from Monday to Friday, at 9 to 5, unfortunately, unlike a lot of other courses. So you have coursework, and you also have by research. If you want to become a clinical audiologist, out there helping people doing hearing tests, or help them with their hearing rehabilitation, you do need to go into the coursework degree to be able to do so. Yeah.
Okay. And just a couple of final questions. Yeah. When you do audiology, I mean, it's one of those opportunities as well to run your own business. You have an opportunity to run your own business. Are there limitations or restrictions? I think I know, like for optometrists, they they have to be separate from the retail section of the how does that work, again, without getting too complicated? Or
I think with the audiologist, as long as you got your number, so this is how it usually works. A new graduate will have to go into a 12-month internship program before they can 12 months under supervision, before they can become a fully qualified audiologist, meaning you can work independently. After that, you're most welcome to run your own business. There's not too much regulation out there. As most of the allied work does, you do need to have the clinical development, points every year. So you need to fulfill that requirement to be able to keep your fully qualified. Then you're allowed to run the business by yourself. I think the biggest concern with the audiologist to run the business is there's a lot of investment prior, because you do need to get all the machines that's necessary to run the test. A hearing booth itself might cost you $200,000.
Wow.
A proper one, obviously, a proper hearing booth. So you have to have quite a bit of a saving before you can do that. So I think majority of people are still prefer to work for a clinic or for a company rather than run their own business. I do know people run their business and done very well. Exactly.
Partnerships, yeah, it's a huge capital outflow, and as we said earlier, with the advancement in technology, I mean, we know today that a laptop, or you can buy it from the store today, and within 6 to 8 months, it's already been superseded, or
Exactly.
There's something better. So I can
Yeah.
imagine, to maintain your competitive advantage, you'd need to be offering your clients the best technology out there, and it would
Yeah.
make more sense if you worked as a group, as a team, investing in it, and at the same time putting away those few dollars every month to maybe one day, maybe one day open up your own your own business.
Business, yes.
Interesting. Well, that's fantastic. And any tips that you would give, as a final note, any tips on for young people out there? I mean, this focus on careers really is for young people who are thinking of careers, thinking of what they want to study, what they want to do, what opportunities are out there. But it's also for people who are currently going through career transition. I mean, clearly you were looking at teaching, and then you moved into this, and we know that it's never too late to change careers. It's never too late to learn something new. So what would you be giving as a parting advice for people looking into it?
I think I encourage people to be open-minded. Don't feel obliged to do what they've taken in university, because I would say maybe 30% of people are actually doing what they are doing in university. A lot of people change careers. It's very, very common for people decide on taking on a different role, somewhere down the path. If you have an open mind and you're brave enough to experience things that you're not familiar with, I'm sure you'll be able to find something you're interested and are willing to put effort into. That's my parting message for anyone.
That's great. And then, and I did say that was parting, but one last thing, Anita. One of the fascinating things I've learned about you is that you have a love of languages, learning different languages. So where does that come from? Is that part of your audiology mind, or is it just something you do for fun?
I think it's something I do for fun. Well, there's a little secret between special education and audiology. At one point, I was considering doing speech pathology. So I always have a passion in language. I find it's very interesting to be able to speak a language. Therefore, you'll be able to understand their culture a little bit more. And as a global village nowadays, we encounter different people with different background all the time. If you just know an extra one word, you'll be able to bring them closer to you, have a better relationship. It's always very encouraging. But I think it's just something personal, something I'm interested in doing, or I love doing and get great
good for you.
Comfort out of. Yeah.
Good for you. Well, Anita, thank you so very much for your time. I know you're busy, and I really sincerely appreciate that. If anybody out there has any questions for Anita, drop us a line at the afocusoncareers@gmail.com. The email address will be in the description here. If you've got any questions, please let us know. Drop us a line as well. And if you've got any careers out there, interesting careers, you yourself or someone you know, once again, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to continue providing you first-class career insights by career experts. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Anita, again for your time. All the very best, and cheers.
Thank you, George.